Hi, this is Kathy from Gadget Stop 321, and in today's video, I'm joining the Ink Rainbow 23 hashtag, and I'm going to do writing samples with my favorite pen and ink combinations. I'm going to begin with Iroshizuku Yamabudo in my Lamy CP1. This is a pen and ink combination that Yamabudo by itself, I really like this ink in a variety of pens. And this pen I've always enjoyed, but these two together I love. And the ink flow is perfect, and you get just that perfect, deep, rich shade of magenta. I think the reverse writing is pretty nice with this. It's nice and smooth and the flow is even, but it's not that much more fine than just the regular writing. Next, I'll be writing with Earl Larmeda Cassis in my Pilot E95S. I'm not normally a fan of pale, low saturation inks, but I feel like this Larmeda Cassis is just saturated enough that it doesn't fall into that category of ink that I'm not fond of. It's nice and smooth in this Pilot fine nib. Now the E95S nibs run a little bit more broad, at least this fine nib does, than my other, like your regular, what I call the regular Pilot fine nibs. And I feel like it's just perfect for this ink, just the perfect amount of ink flow. It's nice and legible. Reverse writing in this E95S is, you can see it's much more fine. And so it's nice to have that option if you need to write a little bit more fine, and it's nice and uniform and surprisingly smooth. So this is just a nice soothing ink. I enjoy journaling with it. It makes me feel creative. Next, I'll be writing with Verdant Rouge Granat in a Pilot Custom 98. Once I retired from teaching, I didn't think I would be using red ink that often, but When I picked up this Custom 98 and tried Rouge Granat in it, it's such a wet writing pen and the ink looks so rich and luxurious. It doesn't come across as teacher correction pen red, and I enjoy journaling with it. The reverse writing is very nice, pretty smooth for this fine of a line, and very uniform. So Rouge Granat is still my favorite red ink. Next, I'll be writing with Herbin Verde Atlantide and my Leonardo Momento Zero in the jade finish. When I bought this pen, I got it with an extra fine nib, which is what I was wanting. And then once I realized that I was going to be using Verde Atlantide, I picked up a fine replacement nib, and that puts down a little more ink, lets you see a little bit more of the shimmer. I originally wanted to get an extra fine flex nib from Leonardo, but they sold out of their flex nibs and I wasn't able to get one. And then they became available from some other retailers like Goulet, and Edison started selling flex nibs in places that sold their pens, so I was able to pick one up. And this is my favorite nib to use with this pen and ink. I put some ink agitators in the converter. You may be able to hear them. And that just helps keep the shimmer agitated. I just give it a few little swirls back and forth before I start writing, and it seems to keep the shimmer distributed in the ink pretty well. I am a fan of green inks, and Verdant Atlantide has quite a bit of gray in it, and so I had to include another green ink. My favorite kind of grassy green ink is Kaweco Palm Green, and I'm going to be writing with it in my Kaweco Lilliput in the brass finish. In my experience, Kaweco nibs can be kind of hit and miss. Some are a little more dry than others, but I got lucky with this fine nib. It looks like it's a little bit dry, but it's just really well suited for this palm green ink, and I've enjoyed writing with it very much. It's become my favorite pocket pen. And in this brass finish, it's just super durable. I can carry it in my pocket without having to put it in a pen sleeve. I've just really enjoyed it very much. And I like this palm green. It's my favorite grassy green ink because you get that grassy greenness without it being too bright. Reverse writing is just too dry with this nib. Now, the regular writing is fantastic, but the reverse writing was too dry. And it's pretty scratchy, but since it's so dry, it's not worth trying to smooth it out because what I've found, if it writes dry when it's scratchy, even after you smooth it out, it's still going to be too dry. Now, I forgot to note that this was an extra fine flex. I'm going to go ahead and put that. And let's see, I think, yeah, reverse writing was very nice with this one. Next, I'll be writing with Kon-peki in my Faber-Castell Ambition. Right now, I've got the fine nib in, or the extra fine nib that came with it, but I've also bought a broad replacement nib on Amazon, and it was very enjoyable. The reverse writing writes like a medium, and I found that I was writing with the reverse side more than I was the regular broad side. So I went back and ordered a medium nib also. So I'll do a video at a later date comparing the extra fine, the medium, and the broad replacement nibs. This is another example of a pen that by itself with other inks, yeah, it's okay. I like it nice enough. And my Kon-peki, I used it quite a bit when I was teaching. It's a nice, unique turquoisey blue, and I would use it for correcting students' papers. But then once I tried this pen and ink together, I just love this flamingo pink with the turquoisey blue. I I just love those two together. And this Iroshizuku ink and this extra fine nib are just nice and smooth. And let me see about reverse writing is too dry though. Next, I'll be writing with Ackerman Israel Zablau with my Visconti Mirage Mythos that my husband got me for Christmas. Now, when my husband bought me this pen, he didn't really know what nib sizes I preferred, so he got a medium. I tend to prefer fine nibs, but I've really enjoyed this medium nib. When I first got this pen, it was a really wet writer, and so I did a little work on the nib. The tines were kind of spread out, and I got them a little bit closer together, but I needed an ink that wrote a little bit dry, and I remembered Israel Zablau was kind of a dry writer, and when I tried it, it was love at first sight. And when I went to try to buy a bottle of Israel Zablau, I could not find it anywhere, and I thought, oh no, um, they don't make that color anymore. So I tried some other inks, and I enjoyed using Tsukiyo in this pen, but it's such a wet writer. Tsukiyo tended to feather a little bit, even on fountain pen friendly papers. And so I was so happy when I found that Van Ness had Israel Zablau in stock. So I ordered a huge bottle, and so I am set for life. That is the ink that's going to be used in this pen from now on. Next, I'll be writing with Tsukiyo and my Pilot Stargazer. Normally, I don't like to go too matchy-matchy with my pens and ink. I like to have colors that complement each other, but I just really like Tsukiyo in this blue Stargazer. And the medium nib, I need to mark that this is a medium. The medium nib is just the perfect line width, in my opinion, for Tsukiyo. You get a little bit of shading, you get to see the character of the ink. Very fond of this pen and ink combination. I need to go ahead and do the ink smear on this one. Oh, look at how pretty that is. Next, I'll be writing with Diatramentus Sherlock Holmes, which is also Diatramentus Night Blue, and I'll be using my Sailor 1911. This is the standard size. I've got a lot of blues here, but in my mind, the Kon-peki is a turquoise. The Both of these are different shades of teals, I guess. And Sherlock Holmes, I guess, would be a true blue. It fits my blue category. And I just love this denim colored blue or night blue in this cream colored pen. To me, it just gives me vintage vibes, especially with it being called Sherlock Holmes Night Blue. And I've got that scritchy scratchy feedback, but it's very smooth. And the reverse writing is a little bit scratchy. If I ever find myself wanting to reverse write, I could smooth it a little bit with some micro mesh because the flow is nice and uniform. Let me check the reverse writing with the Stargazer. I can't remember. Oh, a little too dry. Yeah, just a little too dry. And let's see, I don't have a lot of room for the mythos. I'll write it up here. The reverse writing with this is very nice. I did a lot of reverse writing with it since it's a wetter, wider nib when I was journaling. If I needed to squeeze in, since I write in my some lines a day, there's not a lot of room. If I had a lot to say that day, I would use the reverse writing. Next, I'll be writing with KWZ Honey using my Sailor Mini. Now, I didn't make a note of it, but this medium fine nib on the Pro Gear Slim Mini is a 14 karat nib, just like the Sailor 1911, and my Pilot Stargazer also has a 14 karat nib, as well as the E95S. I have been writing with this little Slim Mini for quite a while, and I'm still on the first fill. I'm getting ready to clean it out. The only ink left is just the ink in the feed. But I have really enjoyed this. Now, I'm considering this my favorite yellow ink. It's looking a little more brown, maybe because it's been in the pen for so long, but you can see there's a lot of yellow in it. And I think the next time I ink this up, I'm going to put the Sherlock Holmes in it. I think these will be the two inks, my two go-to inks for this pen. Next, I'll be writing with Herbin, Poussière de Lune, and my new Pilot Custom Heritage 92. This also has a 14 karat fine nib, and I'm on my second fill of Poussière de Lune in this pen. I love this pen and ink combination, and I always said I would not get a custom Heritage 92 because I'm not fond of piston fillers. I prefer cartridge converter pens just because the ease of cleaning. Now, I do have a Twisby Mini, but Twisby piston fillers are pretty easy to clean out since you can take the nib section off. And I watched some videos. You probably can pull the nib and feed on this, but I really just don't want to because of the warnings that you're given on the Pilot 823 that, people that have pulled the nib and feeds on those, you're more likely to experience cracking in the section. So I'm just going to continue using Poussière de Lune in this pen until I finish up that bottle, which is going to be pretty soon, because I'm finding that I really enjoy this pen. I like the weight of it, the balance, and I haven't talked about this pen before. I've only had it for a couple of months. I haven't done a video on it yet, but I really like how deeply it posts, the balance of it posted. I'm really enjoying this pen, and this pen and ink combination has been really nice. I'm running out of room, but I've got 2 more inks. Next, I've got Colorverse Dark Energy, and I'm going to be using it in my Pilot Custom 74. In the ink smear, you can see that this ink is a really dark saturated red, but as it dries, the sheen on it gives it almost a brown look. I enjoy this ink, I think partly because it makes me feel like Leonardo da Vinci writing in one of his notebooks. And finally, my favorite gray ink, Diamine Earl Grey, and I'll be writing with it in my Monteverde Pocket Ripma. This little pocket Ripma, I just love the nib on it so much. I've run out of room here, but it's a very fine nib. It's got a little bit of stubbiness to it, but it's so fine that it's just right up my alley. And the reverse writing, it has very nice reverse writing also. I'm not going to try to squeeze that in there. I'll just do it over here. And so it's just very versatile. The only downside is this is the only ink that I have tried in it, and I've tried several. I've tried some nice wet Monteverde inks. This is the only ink that I've tried in it that doesn't dry out and hard start in the nib. I mean, when it hard starts, it has serious hard starts. Like you have to shake it or dip it in the ink bottle. I don't think it's the cap seal. I think it's got a pretty good cap seal because it does fine with this Earl Grey. But look how far the nib, I don't know if you'll be able to see it because it's black, how far the nib sticks out from the feed. And fortunately, I like this pen and ink combination, the gray, and it's kind of a complex gray with this army green, olive green, and dark hardware pen. I just really like them together. I just wish, even though this nib is so finicky on this pen, I really like it, and I wish they would come out with more colors like they do with the regular size Ritma, because I would totally buy them all. But yeah, Diamine Earl Grey is my favorite gray. Now, there were a lot of second places with these. This was difficult to narrow this down, and you can see I didn't narrow it down very much with the blues. I had to really narrow it down for the greens, because if I would have started including other greens, that would have never ended. I could have done a whole page. I could have done a rainbow of green inks. But if you found this video interesting or helpful, please give me a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel.